Hey, welcome back. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining the channel. Hope you're all well. Today on the bench I have a Yamaha natural sound stereo receiver. It's an RX 500U. This was sent to me by one of my clients, one of the viewers of the channel, Angelo. I actually repaired his Akai open wheel deck in a previous episode. I'll put a link above for that. But he wanted me to check over his receiver. We had some discussion back a while ago, back and forth, and I did promise to do this for him. So I made a commitment that he could, ship it to me, and I would give it a full service. I normally don't take items shipped into me because of the hassle of costs. Yeah, costs are a real big thing, and the risk of getting damaged, things getting damaged. I really want to avoid that. So that's the reasoning behind that. But I did commit to doing this for him, so he did send it to me, which is good. And it's been sitting here for a while. I received this back in August, end of August. Now it's October, so yeah, I'm sorry for the delay, but I had other things going on. So he says, he wrote me a nice letter, and he says there's really no problems with it other than the controls, and I'll explain what's going on here in a bit. But he thinks everything else is fine. He did have this service at another place, and let me see if I can say what he says. He took it into a pro shop, and he wanted to make sure everything was working factory specs. When he got it back, the invoice noticed that parts were replaced, aligned and adjusted to specs. Tested okay, no parts list was provided to me. So they did take the item, they did take the receiver, they did work on it, they took his money, they weren't really clear on what they did to it, and Angelo's kind of confused as to what did he pay for, kind of thing, right? So that was part of our conversation about me working this over, is to, just to check to make sure everything's good with it, and he wants it in top running condition. That's what we're going to aim to do here. And he said it does have one problem that he's aware of, and it's these knobs. And I was just looking at it just before I turned the camera on, and yeah, it is not correct. Maybe I'll move the camera and I'll show you what's going on with that. But there's other problems I discovered. I hooked this up on my testing desk, and I was listening to it for about 2 days, and yeah, this thing has some real issues. And I got a little story about when I first unboxed this and connected it up to my speakers and plugged it in. It really gave me a shock, because not an electrical shock, but a jolt, because when I first turned it on, it made this huge squealing noise, or sound like feedback or a squeal, and it was loud, and it made me jump out of my skin, and I thought it damaged my speakers. And I was like, oh, what kind of a thing was sent to me here? Like, I'm just like, is this thing for real? And then it started working, and then it kind of redeemed itself, but it still has other issues too. So let's talk about those issues, but first let's have a look at the front here. So here's a look at the front controls. It's got a power button here, and to be honest, I really don't like this power button. Everything's black, so you can't see it. It's not really marked. It's got some gray font on it, and it's really not clearly marked. So with me, my bad eyes, what I have to do is I have to fumble around for the power switch. You can't feel it because it's kind of flush, and yeah, it's not very good power switch, but it works, whatever. So you got your speakers here for A and B, on and off, 2 sets. Bass extension, I don't know what that does. And it's got a bass control, treble, balance here. Now we have our display unit with preset buttons for tuners, for the tuner, and we have some LEDs. There's this display segment in there, so for the display the tuning. And then there's a signal strength meter here with LEDs. Up to 16 presets, because you have a shift button here. So you get 8 and 8. Memory button for setting. Okay, on this side we have our function selector, tape 1, tape 2, two tape monitors, video auxiliary, a tuner input for the tuner, CD input, and phono input. It still has a phono input. That's nice to see. Tuning up and down, way off on left field here because your tuning's over here, but then they put the tuning knob on this side. I don't understand that. AM FM switch, tuning mode. Now we have balance, loudness control, and a volume pot. I don't understand why they put a loudness pot and a volume pot, and they both kind of do the same thing. So this one here is minus 40 dB when it's turned down and flat when it's turned up, and this one's your main volume. I don't know, I don't understand what their reasoning was behind that. And record out function switch, which allows you to select what function you want to send to your tape decks. So you got phono, CD, tuner, auxiliary, and then you can do dubbing from one deck to the other. It's nice. Volume pot is motorized, and it has, to be honest, it has a really horrible feel to it. When you turn it, it's sticky and difficult to turn, but then there's some slop in it. You see that? We'll get to that later. And then down underneath here we have the window for the remote control receiver. I don't know why they didn't incorporate that into the display unit. Seems odd to me. So on the back there's really nothing much to show. It's just input connectors, a couple of courtesy outlets, 2 sets of speakers, nameplate, power cord. That's pretty much it. There's nothing really there. So one of the things Angelo told me about that was confusing to him, that when he took it in for service and he got it back, it didn't seem right. These potentiometer knobs, this one for example, the balance control has a little detent in the center, which is fine, and the knob lines up with it. Treble, same thing. It has the detent here in the middle and the knob lines up with it. The bass control, however, does not. So that is fully clockwise and the knob is pointing up. If I turn it counterclockwise, there's my detent knob right at -5. If I keep going, there's fully counterclockwise. So that knob is put on wrong. You'd think it's put on wrong, but if you pull it off and look at it, it is a D-shaped knob. So it only goes on one way, it's not splined. So let's see here. And he also complained about the loudness doing the same thing. So if I turn this down to 10 at -40 dB, the knob markings down here, and there is no center detent on this one. So let's try this. Let's see if these two, see how they don't line up? I'll line up the D's on this side. If I flip the knobs over, the center mark does not line up. So let's move this one here. That's the right one for that one. And this is the correct knob for this side. So now they're all good. So they just had the knob switched. No big deal. You just put it right. It's unusual to see that. Okay, but anyways, we're going to be pulling the knobs off anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, on to the issues this thing has. There's a number of them. Like I mentioned, when I first powered it on, it made this huge screech noise that made me jump. We'll try and recreate that here in a second. Another problem this has is I was listening to it and the left channel would kind of drop in volume and be distorted, or it would actually get louder and get distorted. Part of the problem with the volume on this thing is this knob here is loose, and if you wiggle this when it's playing, you can actually hear the volume going up and down. So it's like, because you'll set the volume to a level, and when you let go of the knob, it bounces back and it changes. So you can never really set the volume to what you want it to be. It always has, you know, a little mind of its own and does its own thing. That's a problem to me. I have a feeling the speaker relay is dirty, because that would account for the distortion in the left channel. getting quieter. I did notice left channel got quieter and louder, and I also did notice the right channel was also going up and down in volume, but I think it was mainly the volume knob. So let's try and recreate this noise that is it's making. So I'm going to turn it on now. If you got headphones on, turn the volume down because this could get loud. So I'm going to turn this on and we're going to allow the protection relay to kick in. Okay, there it clicked in. Now I'm going to try turning the volume up. You hear that little click there? It's not going to do it today. I wonder if I shut this off. It's not going to do it today. You can hear the when I wiggle the volume knob. Yeah, let's try tuning. No antenna, of course. Now it's going to make a liar out of me. Oh. I'm trying to get it to recreate this noise, but I guess me playing with the knob is kind of making it go away, not getting worse. So when I first tried it, it was intense and it was loud. But now it's not doing it. It's kind of calmed down. You can hear it a little bit. A little scratchiness right at the very bottom of the rotation. There it goes. Did you hear that? I wonder if I can get it to do that again. Just keep playing with the knob until it does it. There. That's horrible. So there's something wrong with this volume control. I don't understand why it would make a noise if it's got a poor connection. So yeah, we'll have to deal with that. Alright, so let's have a look inside. Looks very nice and clean. I don't think it's been in a smoking environment. Looks very pristine inside, and I know from working on Angelo's Akai deck, he takes very good care of his equipment, so this is no exception. So what we got here on the left is power cord, and it comes in, goes, I unplugged it, power cord comes in, goes straight to courtesy outlets, and then it goes up to the switchboard right here is a chunk switch on a little board that's floating in the wind here. Can't see it very good. It's got a fuse on it. It's not a great design. Power transformer. It's got a nice size core for how small it is. There's our heatsink. I'll have a look here at the amplifier. This is a discrete amplifier. It looks very, very good. I don't see any issues right off the bat. Looks like somebody did some cleaning in here because it was dusty, and it's like they dusted it out. So yeah, it looks pretty good. Okay, everything looks fine so far. Look at this little board they put here. It's got 2 transistors on it, and 2 coils. It's like a little integrated circuit they made. Kind of cool. Okay. So this receiver does not have a removable bottom, so I have to remove the main PCB board to go through and check everything. Check for cracked solders, check for bad caps, and all that jazz. So it's going to be a little bit of a job here taking this all apart. Got to pull out the main board. So I might as well just start with removing front panel and start there. A lot of the things I hear about Yamaha from other people that service them is that they're a pain to work on, and I kind of agree. It's not really laid out for servicing. Like this, for example, the front panel is all connected with these connectors, right? Okay, that's all fine and dandy. This comes all apart. Everything's great. But the volume control pot is all soldered in, and there's no connectors to just remove it. Kind of weird. And even the faceplate, getting the faceplate off was a chore because it's not, well, I didn't read the instructions in the manual. I shouldn't have to. It should be intuitive. But I had to remove the outer aluminum plate first to expose 3 screws here and 1 screw here before this whole thing would come up off the front here. There's little things like that that challenge you, but if you know the tricks, then it's good, I guess. But yeah, I'm going to have to remove this whole board just to check the underside of it because there is no removable bottom panel. So there's another thing. So there's quite a few things that just add up that make it a little more difficult to service than one would expect. For example, here's the infrared sensor for the remote. There's no connectors. It's soldered in, and you think they would be able to unplug it, but no. Same with the volume pot. Okay, so let me continue on here. I'll remove the back panel. I have to remove the back panel, I think, and then a bunch of screws on the main board, and then out it comes. Okay, so this is why we remove the main board or any PCB boards and inspect. You can see here, you can see that. I'm trying to get a good close-up of it. This is actually a solder splash, and it is a little filament of solder that has splashed onto the board. That one's not really a problem. This one here looks like a problem. It's not shorting anything out, but it goes across 1, 2, 3, up to 4 tracks. If I try scraping it off, it's kind of stuck to the flux. That's probably what kept it from shorting, is the flux layer. But yeah, we want to eliminate that for sure. And there's something else here. I don't know if you can see it. At this, I'll try zooming in. Maybe that works. Nope, doesn't like that. This connection here is a transistor. I don't know, I'm getting glare now. Try and get a good look at it. From the side maybe, let the light pour in. This transistor's got, looks like cracks. It's not that bad yet. Probably not causing a problem yet, but it will in the future. So overall this board looks pretty much untouched. I don't think anything's been replaced on it. The power transistors looks like they may have been resoldered, but that may have been done after the wave soldering and the final assembly of the amplifier, they probably soldered those transistors in place once the heat sinks in. And that pretty much looks like it. There's a spot here. This is where the main filter caps are. And they also look like they're hand soldered. But that also may be put in after the wave soldering as well. Along the back here, the phono inputs, all the inputs and outputs, they look okay, but they look like they've been touched up. Again, that may have been done at the factory. It's hard to say. But I don't see any parts on here that have been replaced. Everything looks factory soldered. And I'm just going to go through and check all these connections. I'm going to clean the board and make sure that there are no cracks. Here's a date code of 19th of February 87 for those following along. I don't know if you can read that. I've gone over the board and pretty much checked everything I could see here. Gave it a good cleaning first, and then went over it with a magnifying lens and didn't find too many cracked solders, maybe the odd one here and there. Mainly around things like the tuner module had some cracks on the grounds, things like that. These ground connections were cracked. A few transistors here in the power amplifier that looked iffy, so I redid them, and I redid all the pot connections just because. But overall, it's looking good. And I went over the caps. All the caps on here. You can see this. There's some light blue ones. These are Rubicons. Dark blue. These are Elnas. And then these kind of purple ones. These are these Matsushita ones that are famous for leaking. But I couldn't see any leaks on any of them. I looked at them all. And no leaking yet. So I'm going to leave them alone. Everything checked fine with ESR. I removed the main filter caps and they check fine as well. These ones here, so they're going to go back in. These are 6800 at 50 volt. They're going back in, so really no faults found so far. Looking at the relay though, let's have a little close look at this relay. Okay, before we do anything with the relay, I want to check the contact resistance. So here is one channel. Closing it, and we got 11 ohms, 8 ohms, which is unacceptable. Open, closing again. So this is repeatable and consistent. Every time I close it, we're getting over 6 ohms. Okay, let's check the other channel. Okay, getting ready to close it. Here we go. 7, 6, floating around. Open, closed. Open, closed. Open, closed. So you can see, 100 ohms, 31. This relay is not performing the way it should. It should be down in the low milliohms, 100 milliohms or less. So here it is without its cover. It has 2 sets of contacts on this leaf and 1 contact on this leaf. And you notice that they're orientated opposite each other. These ones go up and down, and this one is horizontal. That's so that when it closes, it's supposed to give a little bit of a wiping action, but this is not, these contacts are not set up properly. When I close the armature, it just barely makes contact. It's almost like these are pushed too far back, and look how wide it is when I open it. So when I close it, it should exert a force here. Where is my pointy? It should exert a force here that causes this to really give it a good push. But it's not really doing that. So what I propose to do is just bend these in ever so slightly. There, that's better. Gets a little bit more contact force. I'm going to give this a cleaning, of course. I'll clean these. This is silver. It's not silver plated, not gold. It's just plain silver. So I'll clean those contacts. But that's closing a lot better now. You can see here where it's bent. It shouldn't be bent like that. Okay, let me check the contact resistance now, since I made that adjustment. Yeah, it got worse. Okay, so it definitely needs a cleaning. Yeah, it got worse. It's because I upset the contact area. So let's get in there and clean that. It's a very mild abrasive. I'm going to try the paper trick first and see how that does on the contact resistance. Alright, the relay didn't respond to any cleaning, so what I did is I hit it very, very lightly with some 1000 grit, and I just knocked off the oxidation that was on the contacts there, and exposed some fresh material. Now we're down around 20 milliohms or so for both sets of contacts, so we're good. Alright, let's have a good look at this volume pot here. See, it has a funny slack, and I can see the slack is on this the shaft of this worm gear. The worm gear is slapping back and forth, so there's some play there. That's the main reason. But then it's got this sticky drag feel that it, yeah, because there's a clutch in there and it has, somebody probably put some kind of lubricant on it. Let's remove this printed circuit board first, get it out of the way. I have a feeling maybe one of these rivets have gone loose. I don't know. I'm just going to check them, make sure there's no bad connections inside the pot. Shouldn't be making a huge squealing noise. I don't know what that's all about, but it sounded like a feedback or something, so we'll see what we got here. Take this pot off and give it a good clean too. I have a feeling maybe somebody sprayed something in there and it upset the viscosity of something. That's why it feels really, it's a real drag to try and turn. Okay, spoke got this. Got one here to the ground, like a shield. Okay. Put this aside, I'll clean that off better. I just want to check these. Okay, that's good. None of those are loose. But I think I need to it's really stiff. Does it need to be that stiff? Let's open it up. Lift these 4 tabs. Okay. Yeah. This whole thing needs new grease. Okay, just clean off this clutch surface. This one too, get some just going to use this stuff. This stuff dissolves anything that is oil-based, grease, oil, you name it, it attacks it. Let's go in here. Clean all this out. Okay, let's give it some new grease. Before I assemble that, let's service this pot. Give the shaft a little dab of oil. Oh yeah, that's better. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something a little different this time. I'm going to flush out all the other lubricant that was in there. Something probably was sprayed in there. So I'm going to use this. This is zero residue. What this will do is it'll flush out anything that's in there that is soluble as an oil. Okay. Let's give that a chance to drain and evaporate. I don't feel any damage, especially at the low end here where it's the low end. All feels good. Okay, we're going to go relubricate with F100. So we need to get the wiper in the right position so we can see it, and I'll just apply a little tiny drop directly on it. I can't see, it's in the shadows. There we go. I'm doing the same on the other channel. Let me see. Yes, that's good. Okay. And that should be enough to bring that back. Okay. Now our clutch. Steel feels stiff. Let's reinstall it and see how it feels. Ouch. flatten these tangs out so they go in better. There we go. I'll put this on. Just temporary. I just want to test fit it and see how it feels. Okay. Actually, I don't feel too bad. That's actually not bad at all. And that slop is missing. It's not as bad as it was before. Oh, there it is on the low end. Okay. Yeah, that slop is done. Okay, let's just want to relubricate this one more time, just to make sure. I don't think there's going to be any difference between oil or grease. I think they're both going to perform pretty much the same. So I'm just going to go with grease again. All right, now what do we do with the rest of this? Looks like there's some trash in there. What is that? Give the worm gear some grease. Okay, clean this old grease out. Give it some fresh. Yeah, much better. So, for the motor, all standard motor rules apply. This is a brushed DC motor. It has 2 brushes in there. If you're going to pull the end cap off, you need to mark it so that the brushes are on the correct polarity according to where the magnets are. If this motor gives you troubles, you can disassemble this and lubricate the internal bearing, the external bearing, clean the commutator and the brushes to do that, you'd have to bend back these 4 tangs, and then the end cap comes off. Like I said, make sure you mark it. You probably need to pull this worm gear off too, because it is not going to come off through that little hole. You can remove the motor. There's 2 screws here. If you disassemble the rest of these parts, you get access to those 2 screws, and you can replace the motor if you need to. Not much else to say about it. There's a couple slots in the back here for the brushes. So if you do have a needle or something, you can stick it in there, and you can push the brushes back away from the commutator for pulling the cap on and off. Not much to go wrong here. It's just a basic DC motor with a couple of worm gear reductions. Okay, so I'm going to lubricate the rest of this. Still feel a little bit of play here. What I might do is I might just cave in this side a little bit just to tighten it up so that there's no slop in that gear anymore. And then we'll reassemble. So what do we do here? Take the spring out. And do not fling it across the room. Okay. Now I can lift up on this. Pull this out. And I ever slightly want to just crush this closer. Maybe 0.5 millimeter. And let's have a look at this. Let's clean this up. Now this end's quite dirty. There we go. Quite a bit of dirt where that spring was riding on the shaft. So anyways, let's lubricate this on the end. In the groove for the spring. And the other end. Let's put this back in. Oh, we gotta clean this first. Alright, oh yeah, that's a lot better now. Let's get this back in place. This needs a cleaning too, it's dirty. Let's see if we can do this without springing it across the room. Oh yeah, that's easy. Right in place. Okay. So we're ready to assemble. Let's do this. This goes like this. This is done. Perfect. Let's bend these over. I don't know if the owner mainly uses the remote or the knob for volume control. So, oh, that feels a lot better. It's got a smooth action to it, and it doesn't have that slop. Let's try this. Clutch is holding good. Motor's a little noisy, but okay, let's install it. All right, let's do a bias adjustment before we go any further. We got everything back together, powered on. It's been sitting on for about 15 minutes or so, and the instructions are kind of clear. Well, not really. It doesn't really say. It says you measure your bias across R293 for the left channel and unknown resistor for the right channel. Doesn't say. But what you're doing is you're measuring across one of the emitter resistors, not both. So it doesn't really matter which resistor you use. They're both going to have the same current. So you can pick either one for the left, either one for the right channel. And they're asking for 10 to 15 millivolts. So let's connect this up. And we'll see what we're at right now. Let's see here. Okay, we're only at 1.8 millivolts. So our idle current, our idle consumption is 22.8 watts. Let's turn this up. We have to adjust VR 201 for the left channel. Or no, yeah, left channel. Left channel's back here at the back, right channel's at the front. So let's do the left channel first, sorry. Let's turn this up to about 10. Okay. Our consumption went up to 26.4. So let's do the other channel now. And then I'll allow that to stabilize, and then we'll come back and we'll check it. And we're a little bit high on this one. Let's turn this one down. Right about there is fine. And we're back down to 24.2 watts. So I'm just going to let this stabilize and settle, and then we're going to check it again. It's already gone below 10, so I'll tweak it up. All right, so we're all wired in for a power test. Let's turn it on and try it out. Speakers A, everything's set flat. Volume is okay. So that horrible noise that I experienced when the volume control was turned down is gone. I can't make it do that noise anymore, which is good. That's what we want. I don't know why it was making that awful feedback screech, but it won't do it anymore. So, and the volume control feels a lot better now. It doesn't feel so sticky, and it had a lot of drag before. Now it's got a smooth action, and it's got a nice feel to it. So let's turn the speakers off, turn on channel B, and we can put this on our scope. Let's turn the scope. I didn't set up my scope for this yet. Let's go right about there. Let's try full power test. Okay, there's clipping. Back it off a bit. Looks very good. Right about there. We got 23.03 volts RMS on the output. So I'll let this go for a while and see how it warms up. This thing's heating up fast. It's an 8 ohm load. Okay, I'm going to shut it off. It's been a couple minutes. I don't think this heatsink is quite adequate for high volume sustained power outputs. It seems like it's just adequate for average listening. So it did heat up quite fast, and we really don't have much mass here when it comes to the heatsink. Yeah, warmed up pretty quick, but it is working great. You can see. Let's try a few other things here. Actually, let's try frequency response. Let's do this. Okay. Okay, here's 10 hertz. Let's give it a little bit of volume here. Let's run it at about 10 watts or so. Okay, 10 hertz. Let's take it down. Seven, 6. And we see we're starting to lose our signal amplitude. 5, 4, 3. Yeah, pretty much lost it there at 3 hertz. So we're good from about 9, 10 hertz. Let's try 20 hertz. Okay, there's 20 hertz. 30, 40, 50. Okay. Here's 1,000 hertz. Let's go up. We're at 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Starting to drop off right around 41, 40. Yeah, right around 40. Right about here, 42 kilohertz, it starts to drop off. And if I go higher, why did it quit? At 50 kilohertz, it stops. That was weird. It might be overheating this thing. We had it up around 10 watts or so. Okay, let's try square wave. Thousand hertz tone. Let's take it up a little bit. I don't want to go too high. So let's got bass cut, bass boost, treble cut, treble boost. Balance is working good. Just loudness. So let's go up in frequency. It's 5 kilohertz. Starting to lose our leading edge. Ten kilohertz. Let's see what the treble does here. 10 kilohertz. Let's go up. 18, 19, 20. 20 kilohertz. That's what our square wave looks like at 20 kilohertz. Not terrible, but it's not great either. So it's doing pretty good. So I like this. Things I don't like about it is the amount of heat it puts out on that little bit of power we were playing with. Well, there you have it. It's done. I do like this receiver. One thing I like about it is the red LEDs on the display. It reminds me of back in my youth when I was in the 80s. I had a Yamaha car deck. It was I can't remember the model number. I'd have to look it up. But it was a nice auto reverse cassette deck with AM/FM, and it had an LCD display. It was black backlit red like this. So this one's done. He did send the remote. I should check this out, make sure it's all working. Maybe I could take it apart and clean it too. It looks kind of dusty. So I'll do that. So we'll get this finished up and get it sent back to the owner. All right, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.